Want to continue to invite people to the annual interfaith time of giving thanks. It's been expanded this year in terms of also giving food and caring for each other, giving thanks, celebrating and hearing from our different faith traditions and religions in San Antonio, both in song, but in simple table prayers, but also faith leaders who will be bringing forth prayers of thanksgiving, healing, unity. So I wanted to put this up on screen. Again, it's family friendly and it's free and open to the public. I also understand that the kiosk on Main Plaza will be serving free cocoa and popcorn for people who come. And so you can come for any or all of it. Parking downtown on Tuesday night is free. There is a parking garage at City Tower, which used to be Frost Bank before it built the new spectacular one. And that is a city parking garage. So it's just right across the street from Main Plaza and the cathedral. It's 8:01. We'll take a few other announcements. I'll stop sharing here. And any announcements? Somebody want to raise their hand or just kind of, Martha is, or just kind of jump in?
November 18th along Cherry Street will be t-shirts with names of victims of homicide and suicide. The installation Vidas Robadas, Stolen Lives. And so, Rob Mueller talked about that last week. And let's remember that morning of November 18th so we can really work together against gun violence.
Thank you, Martha Ann. Sharon, you have an announcement? Your hand is up. If you want to unmute yours, there you go.
Good morning, everyone, and I hope this year will be a good year for everyone. And in that Thanksgiving, we try to pray for peace for all the world in the humanity. And I have an announcement that the Mandayan, we have annually the Mandayan Convention will be in November 18. It's 6 to 8, and it's open and free. And we have the famous professors. They are specialists in the Mandayan. They will be gathering in this time. And I will send the flyer. And thank you.
Thank you. And I bet there are people who are listening in who aren't familiar with the Mandayan tradition. So this would be a great opportunity to learn about it and learn about each other. So thank you for sharing that with us, Sharam. And if you can put that into chat, that would be lovely.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more. On November 9th, we are commemorating the Night of Kristallnacht. It's been 85 years, and it's a time when we gather. We're honoring this year the righteous among the nations, people who stood up against the Nazis and helped to save Jews and others who were from being killed. So we'd love to have you all there. It's just going to be from 7 to 8. And also, I've been to Sharam's Mandayan conference before. So I just wanted to put a plug in for that as well, because it's really interesting and really delicious desserts, I would have to say as well. But I really enjoyed it and learned a lot. So if anyone has an opportunity, I would recommend it as well.
Thank you, Lisa. And I plan to see you on the 9th. So, and speaking of desserts, with I was going to say Monday was like fall finally came with the rain and cold, but actually that's more like what I remember being Texas winter, cold and rainy. And then what we had on Tuesday and yesterday was more like the fall that I remember. But on Monday, I was, of course, feeling like soup because it was cold. I invited my daughter and family. I finally got to making soup yesterday, my grandmother's chicken noodle. And at the end of the meal, my 6-year-old grandson, Jack, asked, this is a regular question, so is there dessert? Which basically means, are there chocolates in that handmade bowl at the top of the shelf that we can share? That's what it means, right? And I said, well, yes, there are, and not like you didn't have enough chocolate in a Halloween bag back home, but I'm sure some of you, maybe all of you, are familiar. This is the chocolate I had in there, but it's a Dove chocolate. And then inside Dove chocolate, kind of like a fortune cookie, but not. There are sayings that people have written. And this is the one that I opened last night. And it's from Soteria in New Jersey. And it says, be fearlessly authentic. And so my commitment to you this morning is that I'm going to be as authentic as I can be. And so I want to first welcome you and your active heart, your courage to come today to talk about how to have a conversation. And I hope that all of you received both of my notifications yesterday, both the announcement about this morning, plus also my email later of apology and hopefully clarification about today. So I hope you received both of those. And what I want to share with you today are methods and techniques, all of which are based on research, neuroscience, social science. And we're not going to, I can get you all the research and where that all is found, but we're going to just take things that they've been researched, and that is what I'm sharing with you. And we're going to go a little old school. We've done this before, but I invite you, if you don't have, a piece of paper in front of you, to consider grabbing a piece of paper and a pen. And these won't be shared with other people. This is just for you. And of course, this recording will be available, but this is an invitation to go through this together. So before we start, I would like to invite us to take just a few moments to breathe intentionally together. And it's best if you breathe through your nose, because that's where our filter system is. And as we breathe in through our nose, the oxygen that we take into our body will be filtered and cleaner than if we're breathing through our mouth. And when we're having conversations that might not be easy ones, we need as much oxygen in our head and in our heart as we can get. I'm sure you've been in situations where you can even start to feel lightheaded in the conversation or some anxiety. It might be because you're holding breath or breathing too quickly. So the first thing, and one of the best things to do with difficult conversations, is to breathe before. And if you get anxious or anywhere along the way, there could be a pause that we all breathe together. or even you just say to yourself, I don't know if I'm breathing. And so to take in a deep breath. So I'm going to invite 3 breaths today. And as we breathe in through our nostrils, a great big breath. We think of those who are suffering today, hurting, anywhere and everywhere around the planet. And as we breathe in again, a deep breath. And when you're ready to exhale, breathe out of your mouth, but breathing in to think of those who are nearer to us, people we know specifically who are hurting, suffering, extending the hope that they experience a moment today of peace. And then our third deep breath in is for ourself. For our own hurts. Own sufferings. And that we too might be blessed with a moment, at least a moment of peace in our life today. Thank you. So I've already written on my piece of paper, so I can hopefully keep my head clear, right? I want to open up the chat. And in some cases, especially if you're gathered in a group, many of you probably know about polling systems. There are free ones that you can get online. We're going to use chat today to do that kind of thing, but you can use online polling to kind of help those who are gathered together to see and hear each other as a group. And so I want to invite all of us in chat, if you're comfortable doing so, but to write one word in chat of how you are feeling right at this moment inside. And one word should do it. You can do more, but one should do it. And, you know, be as honest and as real as possible. And then maybe even scroll back to read those again. And even if you haven't put a word there, you might recognize the feelings, some of them as your own. And that empathy helps us to do that. Those things we're equipped with empathy and compassion in our DNA. So that recognition and the naming, lamenting, concerned, hectic, is a part of what we also share as humans. We share feelings. We share empathy. We have that capacity for compassion as well. Again, all that I'm sharing with you today is based on research, but it's not rocket science. We're talking about humans. And I have, oh, they're still coming in. We're going to wait. I'm scrolling through them again. So another question that we're going to do a quick poll on. This might need a few more words, but what do you hope to gain from today? If you could name that. Again, I invite you to scroll back up and down, read them again. So we're also reading not only previously the first question, feelings that we share and recognize as human, but we also share hopes. Conversation is a relational word. In simple terms, it's with verse, that we're trying to sing together. We're moving together. It doesn't mean that it's about fixing, or a conversation relationally goes on for a lifetime, right? So there's not necessarily an end. These are lovely hopes for today. Now, I remind myself, so this is my disclaimer. I even wrote that down on my notes, disclaimer. So this is my disclaimer. I am not perfect. I don't know if that's your disclaimer, but I do know that when I enter into any conversation that I don't know, but maybe a tip of the iceberg, even when I know somebody that I've known for decades. I'm not perfect. I come to this conversation in choosing and trusting. So choosing and trusting that we're all bringing the best of ourselves into this. And again, I'll speak for myself. I am not perfect, but I'm bringing the best I have to offer. And I'm choosing and trusting that you are as well. So that's my disclaimer on the top of my old school notes here. We've all heard and know, again, based on research, but we've heard and know the responses to difficulties in large ways with humans are usually one of two choices: fight or flight. But what we're entering into today is another choice, and that is to open oneself to another and to meet others who are opening themselves as well. So it isn't just in a conversation or otherwise. Our choices are not just fight or flight. We can open ourselves and to each other. We can choose to do that. Again, all this is based on science. We can make that choice. For me, that fight, flight, or openness, I could choose any one of those. But I think about all of them when I come into something difficult. Am I going to choose to fight? Am I going to choose to not do anything or run away, both of which are flight?
Well, it's not a question.
Well,
It's
and
the alternative to fight.
right. And so for me, it becomes a question of love. How much do I love these people, my people? How much do I love? And I have to admit that last night, late, after a day of the invitation and notification I sent out yesterday morning, I was discerning among these three: fight, flight, open. And then I asked the question, how much do I love? And here we are today. So again, our movement today, and I recognize it in all of you, you did not have to show up today. At the intersection, is always an option. And it's always an option. So some techniques, I've already shared some with you. The importance of breathing. The importance of recognizing how we feel inside, but also the feelings around us, others. To begin where you wish to end. So we all, some of us, I hope everyone, at least on their old school piece of paper, wrote down what you hoped would come from today. So that's where you want to go. So to live into that while we're together today. Another great place, and I want to give you easy techniques too that you can carry with you. And I simply went to Google. And I know that all of you in some time in your life went to some group discussion, right? Or some workshop, or I don't know, the list is kind of endless, but where you looked at some ground rules. to begin. And so I simply Googled, I can, send you ground rules, but there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of examples that you can Google. I'm going to show you 2 random examples. But the tool I want to share with you is applying the ethic of reciprocity, also known as the golden rule, to the ground rules. And so to gather in ground rules, I'm going to show you another one, if it will let me. And what I mean by this in terms of translating, here I come, second one. Because this tool you can carry with you in any ground rule or when you're having a conversation. This particular list, and I popped this one up, 5 ground rules before starting a difficult conversation. And it's interesting, here it is. When it comes to family, politics, and religion, the Thanksgiving rule is to just not bring the topics up. Anyway, here are their 5 rules, and I'm going to translate them in terms of the ethic of reciprocity. So listen to here. We could translate that into listen to others in ways we wish to be heard. And likewise, I'm putting it in the other direction, working on the translation, not shutting people off in ways that we would not wish to be shut off. Listen with empathy. Listen knowing that we all have similar experiences, not all the same ones. We don't know exactly how someone else might be feeling. They might not know how I'm feeling, but knowing that those are there. And I think probably the other side of that ethic would be, don't shut off your feelings to others in ways that you would not want them to shut their feelings off from you. Like you wouldn't want to be shut off. To respect others in the best language you can bring, the best presence you can bring, respect others the way you wish to be respected, and equally to not disrespect in ways that you would not wish to be disrespected. Remembering the conversation and the goal and the hope that the conversation is about the relationship in the conversation. It's about you and me, that relationship. And that you can press pause, and to recognize maybe a needed pause in another. Pause even for yourself. To allow that pausing in others. So these are, I think the biggest thing for me is when I might be feeling anxious. I'm trying to think of In a conversation, one of the things I've remind myself of is that the other people are probably feeling anxious too. I'm not alone in my anxiety. I'm just not alone. I might think I am, and but that will help move it forward. So again, I've got 2 more things I want to share, but it's 8:30, and if people need to leave, I respect that. And I'm grateful that you came today. And I do believe that Dr. Q English, who's from, if you remember, she was with us before. They are working, and I'd say the Federal Department of Health and Human Services are working on a new toolkit about having conversation in conflicted times, and it's almost done. And so I've invited her to come and share that with us next week, and hopefully she will be with us. So the 2 other things that I want to share that might be helpful in your encounters. And this is where you might want to write down on your old school piece of paper to think, and don't, I encourage you to think close. Maybe to think close and probably a strong relationship, one that you value, but has strength and trust in it, but a person that you need to have maybe a not so easy conversation with. So to think on, almost like an experiment, to think on someone that you could go to soon and maybe even agree in the ground rules something like, I want to learn how to do this better. And I can't think of anyone I love more than you, and anyone that this would be more important with. So maybe placing a name there, or a thought, or a group of people. But I encourage you and invite you, don't go too big and too far away in distance, but in one sense, providing that kind of safe space to try. I remember that there was a storytelling gathering last fall. Simran Jeet Singh was a part of that, Father David Garcia, Naomi Shiab Nye, and fourth name is escaping me, I'm so sorry. But Simran had said something about risk, and I think it's basically what we were talking about in terms of fight, flight, or open. He asked, and my question is a question of love. His was a question of risk. You know, like, what's the greater risk? To not say something, or to say something. Where's your greatest risk? And that too is a choice. So the 2 other things that I would like to show you, resources that you can easy get to, and that have been created again from research, but have been put together by other San Antonians. So the first one that I want to show you, share with you, and you can see the address here, healingsatx.org. And so this website was put together by one of our community collaboratives, and we've looked at it before. And yes, we are each in places that are complex, but there is much that we share. So this website was put together to heal as community, as a collective of people. And the mayor talks here, so you could, check that out. But what this particular group did is also go looking for examples of things happening across San Antonio that could be replicated and ways that help us to heal as a community, and that you can put in ideas. But what I wanted to share with you today is the research behind it, if you need to go somewhere to help you remember these things. So, as a people, based on research, to heal as a community, what we need as humans is to come together physically, emotionally, zoomingly, but to create safe spaces and people places where we can practice listening as well as being able to name our pains. That in those times that we provide ways to build relationships. So I would even suggest that practicing all of these things is a form of leadership and modeling. That we can practice what others do. Hopefully today, some ways have been provided to help build relationships, a safe space formed as best as able. There was a concert on Sunday night, and the Archbishop and Rabbi Mara Nathan and Imam Omar Shakir brought prayers of peace. I know when they made the decision, each of them, to do that, that was an act of love, courage, and leadership. So others could see the importance of standing and being together. We've also practiced this morning noticing what's happening in our bodies. How are we feeling? Encouraging breathing. And it doesn't just have to be outdoors, but you can take a lot more in when you're outdoors. Humor has a very large healing factor, because when we laugh, we take in a lot more oxygen. When we sing, we breathe more. So having ways to do that. And at the concert, there were several times where the standing room only in the cathedral, where we were all singing together songs we had never sung before. So we were breathing together, recognizing that we are together, expressing what's going on inside, outside, remembering that in terms of being a human, that being, feeling, and thinking together, that doesn't mean you agree, but being, feeling, and thinking together forms community. And that remembering hate is not the opposite of love. Love can include hate, but it's much more interested in growth, wisdom, listening, and I would add to that in understanding. So this is a list that you can go to, created by other San Antonians, if you're trying to figure out what might my next steps be. And this may just be the size of one other person, by the way, or your family, which sometimes can be the more difficult one. It could be in your community. It could be at your work or school or place of prayer and worship, your organization. And then one other tool that I wish to share with you, and this one is critical. And it's story. And I love this quote that this website was created around. And so you can find this at Story Portal, SATX. Again, this entire project was put together by other San Antonians. But this quote of, "So let us pick up the stones over which we stumble, friends, and build altars." When I was serving at Haven for Hope, one thing that was obvious after day one was the need for those who are hurting, for all of us, how important to the healing to share our story is. That especially when there's a strong trauma in someone's life or is happening connected to someone's life, it's as if we have to bring that out of our physical system and share it. This portal, much like the Healing SATX, went about gathering places that have story projects in San Antonio of San Antonians. Sometimes in bringing difficult conversations forward, I'm going to scroll ahead, it could be helpful to find a story a bit outside yourself in the group and have that story shared. And that's what this portal was about, finding story projects that already exist and hearing stories from San Antonians about San Antonians. But you could also find in these, a living storyteller. You could find the person in San Antonio whose story it actually is. And they could come to a school or a place of worship and tell that story. I know that that is a common practice. I know we're all familiar with that in terms of Holocaust survivors, victims who come and share their stories and how important that is to offer up the story. So that's a tool, these different portals. But what I want to look at are the summations of the research that also is in this portal. Again, research, but in the sharing of our stories, it increases our sense of connection. Telling our stories can help, literally, the chemistry turns off our stress response and flips on our healing, our self-repair. Stories can relax our nervous system and help heal anxiety, anger, fear, loneliness. I would add sadness. I mean, the list is long, but you might think of like going to a funeral. And I've never been to a funeral that at some point storytelling didn't happen. Do you remember when we went to, and those stories need to be told. It's a part of how we heal, but they can also be comforting. They can be hysterically funny and bring laughter into a time of grief and sadness. It helps us to remember and reminds us that we're in all of this together. It can bring and help if you're not feeling empathy yourself or wanting to be with people, or it can help bring us back into an open space of empathy where we want to cooperate. It can also, our stories can inspire us to do something different, to take a step. And I'm hoping today helps all of us and each of us think of one maybe simple step to take. Stories heal on an individual level, in families, communities, entire cities, and it can help to heal history and hearts. It's not easy work, and it's never said and done. Especially ancestral and historical traumas and events. But the stories help to make that happen. So we're at 8:46, and we have always tried to open and until 8:45. I'm willing to keep this open until 9 o'clock for anybody who might want to stay and share more conversation with me. But I want to thank you all for your courage today, your bravery. At the Intersection has always been about the strengthening, nurturing, the capacity, the building of capacity in terms of our faith and our community and our civic leaders. And so the 36 of us who gathered today in one sense, by coming, there's kind of a co-mission to be about some form of leadership and helping ourselves and others be open and safe in our vulnerability. Oh, and I was going to ask if anybody is willing. I had hoped to do this. I should have done it at 8:30. I'm going to ask you in chat, how do you feel right now? So if you could put one word into the chat of how you feel right now. We did that at the beginning. Same question. Jerry, was that word calm? Or there you go. Just, or we're doing almsgiving today. It could be that. It could be that, but better. I'm reading the chat. I'm sure some of you have participated in a word cloud, right? Where people do the same thing, only they come up, you know. I find that does something, doesn't it? The word cloud, there's a visual. And then when multiple words, the same word is used again, it grows bigger. So you can kind of feel the growth. Any thoughts or questions, conversation out there?
I would just like to say that you see that the comments of how we were feeling went from difficult and negative to positive and hopeful. So thank you, Anne. If you see the outcome, very positive.
I think if I had chosen last night flight, and maybe canceled this morning or not shown up, right? I think my feeling right now, I'm pretty certain that I would be feeling very doubtful. I would still be questioning my decision. It wouldn't necessarily feel good in my gut. It would be probably swirling around some anxiety, nervousness. But I tell you, those Dove chocolates, they can be pretty darn sweet. Be fearlessly authentic.
And this is Nadia dialing in. Can I share something?
Sure.
I just feel compelled to share this because it was a conversation, an authentic conversation that I had this week, and I was really doubtful whether or not I should even approach this person about the conversation, and I'm so glad that I did. And I'm thank you for this guidance today. And I apologize, I'm on an airplane, so you may hear some background noise, but essentially, many of you know I'm an Arab American and a Muslim. I was just in Brazil at a conference, and I met in person someone that I've known a little bit over the last couple of years, but never deeply. But he is an Israeli American and Jewish, and I felt that we really needed to have an authentic conversation. And I was nervous to approach him about having that conversation, but I did, and we ended up having a 2-hour conversation. And like we got each other's perspectives. We shared each other's like viewpoints, as well as like where do we get our news. And you know, I'm following some of his Israeli some Israeli-based social media accounts that he suggested to me, and I think it just helped so much. But it was like initially it was honestly scary because I don't know him that well. And I felt like, you know, this could become a divisive conversation, but it was so healthy. And so anyway, I just wanted to share that, like, if anyone is nervous about these kinds of conversations, I feel like it's so important to have, like you said, like come with authenticity and come with empathy, to like really truly like have an authentic conversation. So thank you for leading this today, Anne.
Nadia, thank you for sharing that story. I mean, what I heard was the great gift you got from it. And then even, you know, being able to say, and I don't know if you did, but I do find it, you know, to even say up front, this is really scary for me, right? With the other person. You might find the other person going, oh, yeah, you know, scared as hell, right? And even then, right, we find we're still together. It's a lovely story. I did note what Beverly put in as an addition to our choices. You know, fight, flight, open, forgive, close it. Those are all choices. And you know, what is it? It's an option thinker, right? And your option thinking is you think of every possible option that you could do, right? And recognizing you can do any of them. But which one, you know, what's at risk, you know, for real, right? Because in, I think, Nadia's story, but who knows what that relationship would be without that conversation now, skirting by each other, or the unspokenness. The things we assume. my best friend in high school was the guy who sat in front of me. You know how that works. And you talk and do stuff. Well, we did in class, and he was my best friend. And I actually ended up dating him in high school. And one night, unexpectedly, he broke up with me. And I never knew why. For 30 years, I didn't know why. And it really bothered me. For those 30 years, it wasn't like it was ever gone. And we basically didn't speak for 30 years. And I'm trying to remember now how we ended up talking again. I don't know. Our paths intersected again. And I don't know where it came from inside of me, but I mustered up enough courage at 30 years older. You think by 30 years more, I would, yeah, right? Come on. I just asked him, what was that about? And darn if he didn't get me. He said, you know, we were 17. I was scared. Boy, did I get that. And I thought, if only, of course, when I was 17, being scared might not have made any sense to me. But he was scared, the closeness, what that might produce. We can all like start thinking all those things, right? And he did. And he made the decision for at least himself. He didn't choose fight, he did flight. And there was no openness. And I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but we ended up dating again 30 years later. And there's lots more to the story. And sadly, he died suddenly last year. And I'm still kind of mad at him for leaving the planet. Isn't that weird? Weird. I'm like, man, at least I knew you were around, but now you're not around. But I don't know. Okay, it's 8:58. I'm going to look at the messages again real quick.
And I want to recommend the website Interfaith America. Really good resources on the website Interfaith America. And they keep opening up grant after grant to help us build bridges of understanding.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so great, Martha Ann. And that what that also brings up is the importance of bridge builders, bridge making, especially in our polarized times, our side taking. There's got to be then bridges somehow, or there's just going to be further gaps, right? And even, you know, what courage it takes to build the bridges or to be one of the bridge makers, builders. That too is a decision, right? To step up and in. Yeah. One more minute. I'm just going to tell all. Yes.
They're offering universities $30,000 grants to help educate our students to build better bridges between faiths. I'm working on writing a grant.
I was just going to ask you. I knew you were going to say that. Good for you. Can we partner in that? Yay! Mm-hmm. That would be good. All right. I love you all. don't know, I wish there were more of me, but we all give our best in what we have. And yeah. And I'm looking at everybody who still remains in this screen, and I know all of you. And I love that lion and lamb carved out of olive wood would be my guess.
Yes.
I want to show you, since you're doing that, I'm going to take liberty here. I'll be right back. On one of my peace delegation trips to the Holy Land in the early 2000s, I was invited into somebody's home, but they did olive wood carving, right? And outside their home was this bigger than where I live, this mound of scraps of olive wood, right? And from that they would do carvings, and the owner of, the guy there said, well, if you want a piece of that, just pick one up. It's yours. You can take it with you. Check this out. So I'm going to show you so that you can see where it comes from, the tree, right? This is the side of the trunk, right? And then this was like a branch. So this was just laying in the pile, and I wrote here, Bethlehem, summer 2006. Look at that grain. Isn't that beautiful? But look at this. You ready? Are you ready for this? It's one of my most favorite things. Here it comes. Look at that shape. And when I looked at this great big pile that he had offered me a piece of it, right? This was laying there, and it was like instant. This heart. It's one of my favorite things. All right. I had a meeting that started 2 minutes ago. So I love you all. I'll see you next week. Take care.